Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter, and I've joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Balls on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man. Having a good old time over here. Been rewatching these spring games, getting fired up for Alabama and LSU to kick off theirs this Saturday to close us out for spring. How you doing, my friend?
Oh, doing great, man. Doing great. Just following you. You know, you seem like you always find some good shit. I saw you getting on there with Jimbo, getting on to the media. I was like, what's going on down there in Texas A&M? You know, So, no, honestly, just been in and out and getting ready for these final two SEC matchups.
Oh, yeah, Shane, I'm glad you referenced that because I did not want to forget. We got Michael Katz. I don't want to forget that. Michael Katz from the DJ Journal, Ole Miss Insider. He joined the show. Great conversation. We're going to play that here in a minute. ESPN FPI. We've got a special show announcement coming up here in just a second. But I did want to lead with that Jimbo comments here, Shane, because that's what we do here. We play these coach clips, and I saw this. This was Saturday, this whole entire exchange. If anybody missed it, we're about to play it. But, man, there's been uproar, and Jimbo's this and Jimbo's that, and he's losing control and he's losing his mind. This is the biggest bullshit that I've seen around SEC in a long, long time, Shane. And, you know, we are not Jimbo Fisher defenders. We call him out when he deserves to be called out. But I also think it's important for people to know when BS is out there, we're going to call it out. We call it like we see it. And, man, this was just awful, clickbait, garbage, whatever you want to call it. I can't believe this even made headlines.
Wrap us up.
How much does a guy like Bryce?
If it's the last question, it's going to be a good question. I don't need no Houston Chronicle question. Give him a question. Give him a Texags question. It's a better question. All right. I don't need no Houston Chronicle. I need a Texags question. Good question.
Let me ask you about a guy who you would like to have had for 30. Bryce
Sports
Foster.
Illustrated is just as bad. Sports Illustrated, that ain't a good one either now. That ain't a good one either. That used to be the golden standard. Daggum.
Bryce Foster.
That used to be the golden standard. Yeah, wait a minute. Y'all give me flack. I can't give you flack. Daggum. Y'all can't take it. Look at it. They get personal. Look at that.
All right, so what's wrong with that side then?
What you got?
All right, Bryce Foster. How much does he miss out? I know you encourage the two sports.
All right, Shane.
Are you playing the clip?
Yeah, I'll play
Oh,
the
yeah.
clip. So, if you're not watching, maybe there's context lost if you're not watching. But he's winking over here.
He's winking the entire time, Mike. I mean, there's clear, like, if I watched this without you even setting it up, I'd be like, oh, look, Jimbo's cutting up a little bit, you know?
And the guy in question, he answered two questions right up, and it wasn't just, you know, let's not call out other coaches, but sometimes these coaches give non-answers. Jimbo, I mean, went at length to give in-depth responses to each. He did not, was not really calling anybody out here. And remember, Shane, this is Jimbo Fisher, who at the start of spring was kind of combative with the media. That was a story, I felt like. But this is Jimbo cutting up, having fun, and that tells me, Shane, that he's probably feeling pretty good about his Aggie football team, and the fact that that there's these idiots calling him out. If anything, all that's going to do is rally the 12th man behind their coach, because stuff like this really does, get the fans behind their coach when it's just made up garbage.
Well, and too, it shows you just kind of how toxic it's been down there lately. They're ready to pile on, Jimbo. Right. Everybody's ready to pile back on Texas A&M and just burn that program to the ground. That's what they're waiting on. Yeah. And so you can kind of tell that when you see dumb stories like this pop up. And if you want to see the full exchange, jump onto our YouTube channel. Mike's posted there. If you're just on the Twitters, if you get on his handle, you'll see the full link. Yes, he jokes up front, but then he goes into an in-depth analysis of the questions that was asked. So, I'm with you, man. We're going to pile on Jimbo when it's right. This was not the time. Jimbo was in the right, in my opinion, and it's kind of funny that it even became a story.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, Shane, I said we got a show announcement here. I'm pretty fired up about this one. We've done it before. We're doing it again, but this is going to be better than ever because we actually have a voicemail to go with it here. We got a call-in line. I'll throw it up on the screen if you're just listening, and we're going to throw this in the show notes so you can always find it in the bottom. If you got an issue, a prediction, maybe you just want to vent, whatever, we have a call-in line, and we'd love for as many voicemails to come on here, be featured on the show, particularly in the off season. We need the content, so you'd be doing us a favor. Last year we've had quite a few, so I'd love to get more this off season. And that call-in line, 615-965-5152. I'll say that one more time, 615-965-5152. And as Cousin Shane has already told me, by God, that's a lot of numbers you're throwing at him.
No way you're memorizing that one, you know. But I will say this, after the games, we'll be posting. If you look at any of our social medias, the phone number will be on there. This is important, Mike, because one of the main reasons I enjoy it is because, you know, we've all had those games, man, when you cannot believe you just lost it. You know, that's really what this is for. This is a vent line, in my opinion. And maybe you don't have a buddy to talk to or a family member you can get a hold of. Well, you got some cousins over here that can be that shoulder for you. You know, you want to fire an offensive coordinator, you call us, and we'll let them know that guy doesn't need to be there. So that's kind of what this is. But like you said, also in the offseason, it really helps just to hear from you guys, maybe some topics that you guys would like to cover, because, again, if not for you, we wouldn't have this podcast. So, I'm really excited about this line. And can you, for those listeners, can you give them that number one more time?
Yes, sir. 615-965-5152. And again, I'll put it in the show notes. This will be plastered all over. So hopefully you give us a ring, give us some questions, give us comments, give us bold predictions, whatever you got. We're willing to take it. And, like you said, I can't wait for the season. We'll be talking a lot about this. I would love to hear, man, everybody is always thinking their team's going to win, but will you be bold enough to call after they lose? Oh, man, I can't wait to see some of the exchanges we get. You know what?
Absolutely. And if you don't want us to put it on the show, maybe you just want to tell somebody. You know, me and Mike are going to listen to every one of these. So maybe you just want to tell us off the air, not just be sure to let us know when you upload your voicemail at the end. Hey, guys, don't want this included on the show. Just curious, your input, you know, or something along those lines. So, this is cool. I'm glad it's back, and it should be a lot of fun, Mike. We're going to do it better this time. We're not technically a call-in show. We're not ripping Feinbaum here or anything like that. But we've got so many great fans out there and loyal listeners, and maybe they got something that could help us, man. I mean, there's been a lot of constructive criticism Mike sends my way. You know, if I didn't know it, I couldn't fix it. Well, the same goes with you guys. So absolutely, if you can get on there and call us, we'd love to have you on the show.
Well, all right, Shay, we'll get to our interview with Michael Katz here in just a moment, but we do have a show topic here that's going to be able to hit on all 14, actually all 16. I keep forgetting we got two more teams, not technically yet in the SEC, but they will be soon enough, Texas and Oklahoma. ESPN Football Power Index. There's a reason I don't use these. There's a reason we don't reference these hardly ever, but it is the off season and we needed the content, and this was a fun way to hit on all 16 teams here, Shane. But I am ready to rip into these. Are you?
Maybe the hotline may have been perfect timing here, Mike. Let's let the listeners see what they think the top 16 power rankings are.
Yeah, so again, this is not my rankings. I would never put my name to this list, but this is ESPN's Football Power Index, Shane. The best team in the SEC, who do you think it is going into the 2023 season?
Georgia Bulldogs.
Wrong. Already this list is invalid, Shane. Alabama. But, no due respect. I mean, they'll be preseason top 5. They'll get all the accolades. I'm not trashing Alabama, but not having Georgia number 1 already makes this list illegitimate in my mind. And Shane, there's even a team above both of them.
You might. Oh, really?
Ohio State. Oh, come on.
Oh, my gosh. Jeez, Mike. Oh, I know where this list was made. Up there in Big Ten country, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, again, that's just laughable. Again, I got no problem you putting Alabama 2 as long as you put Georgia number 1. But that is not how this.
So they got Ohio State number 1,
Uh-huh.
Bama 2, and Georgia 3.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So they got all 3 of those
All
wrong.
right. What's that phone number again, Mike?
615-965-5152.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to call it after this.
Now, I could get on board with this one, Shane. LSU, number 4.
Okay.
And again, we're a year removed from hiring a football coach. I realize, we overachieved. We won a division title. But we're talking sitting here preseason college football playoff discussion. Man, them Tiger fans have got to be happy right there at number 4, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that's very bold in my opinion. I don't get me wrong. I think LSU's going to have a great team, but putting them 4th, that sounds like an SEC homer kind of move. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that's why they led with Ohio State, because they knew they were going to go back to back to back SEC teams here. Well,
I forgot.
Mike, we're going to start all over. God bless America. What's that hotline number?
No, we just won't have your video. I'm sorry, but that's
Yeah,
fine.
that's
your,
okay.
your videos.
Hey, welcome back. Shane's here. For the listeners not knowing, Mike just decided to record me, which doesn't matter. I'm recording this from a Motorola Razr anyway, so.
All right, Shane, you'll never guess, I don't think, the next team ranked on this list. Rack your brain, all the SEC teams. Who do you think? And they've got them as number 5 in the country, which is even more ridiculous in my mind. Who would you take a guess is that number 5 team in the country, number 4 team in the SEC?
Okay, so it's an SEC team. Tennessee?
Texas.
Wait, what?
Texas, number 5 in the country. We're trying to warm up to you.
You threw me off. I thought I
said
thought you were,
SEC.
I know, but they're not. I got you. All right.
But still, you would never in a million years would you have said Texas, would you?
No. Texas is getting there. I think they're getting better. I think they're very young, but I think Texas has a bright future and can find themselves in a top 5 at some point, but not this season.
You got to earn it.
Yeah,
They have
not
not earned. I don't even know if they're top 25.
No,
they
this
probably
is just looking at logos at this point, Mike. That's all this is. This is, it's the first 5 teams I see when I pull into Walmart shopping center. It's like, all right, they got to be good this year.
I think you're dead on, Shay, because the next one, again, no disrespect, but they had a rough year in their coach's debut. Next on this list, Shane, Oklahoma, number 11. And again, I think they went 6-7 or something last year.
But they brought everybody back, including the coaching staff. They should be better this year, Mike. Right?
What are we doing here with this list? How could they even put this list out there?
Again,
we're
brand
talking about it.
recognition.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. Dan Wolken wrote this one, didn't he? Just get everybody fired up.
Now, this one I think you could possibly get on board with, Shane, but maybe, I possibly could be even higher. I think they probably should be. Tennessee, number 12 in the country. How do you feel about that?
Well, yeah. Naturally, I'd try to make an excuse for him to be the 5th best team in the country. But, no, I think this is a good spot for Tennessee Vols. This is a top 15 team for sure. Unfortunately, Joe didn't just blow us away during the spring game. I think that would have helped our case a little bit. But, no, I think this is a good spot for them.
All right, how about number 16, Shane? Ole Miss, who we'll get more in depth with Michael Katz here. But that's probably right where they should be, given, they were top 10 at one point. They played a cupcake schedule to get there, and they didn't finish the deal. So I could see people having issues with this, but in the mix for the top 20, I think is fair for Ole Miss. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, and they're improved. This isn't last year Ole Miss. This is a better Ole Miss team. So
Yeah.
I like this. I like this ranking here.
Now, this one, I don't know if you're going to get on board with either, Shane. Maybe we're just way off the mark, or particularly, I should stop throwing you into this mix. Maybe I'm way off the mark here. But number 18 in the country, the Florida Gators.
Man, yeah, I mean, clearly you're not on this list. You've been on every show this side of the Mississippi, tearing them down. But I think Florida Gators are better than people are going to give them credit for. But I think it's one of those scenarios that if you remove Florida from the SEC and you put them in the pack, or you put them, are they one of the top 20 programs in the country? Absolutely. Yeah. But I think this is a lofty number when you're factoring some of those other teams behind them.
Now, how about number 19, Shane? Texas A&M, which I think that's probably fair, maybe not even ranked. I think they have potential to be even much higher than this, but I can't say Texas has got to earn it and not say A&M's got to earn it too. They have the pieces. They have not earned a top 20 ranking in my mind. What's your thoughts on A&M at 19?
In my opinion, first thing that comes up, it's like the opposite of the Alabama effect. Naturally you want to put Alabama at the first spot because they always produce and they're always competitive and they're always a national championship contender. Mm-hmm. Texas A&M you want to bring down just because of what they did last year. That one really caught a lot of people off guard, and the expectations for the Aggies are just, they're everywhere. I've seen people think that this is going to be another maybe a college football playoff caliber team, and then you've got some on the other hand saying, hey, man, they may fight for another bowl game, So you just don't know what you're going to get with Jimbo right now. So I think that's the problem, is just too many question marks. So like I said, the opposite of the Alabama. I really think Texas A&M's got a better team than this. But, am I going to argue and put my face out there again and say they're going to win the SEC? Hell no, I'm not. But I do think we got a better program down there.
All right, how about this one, Shane? Again, just the annual disrespect of this program never ceases to amaze me. Kentucky, number 28. We got to put Kentucky in the top 25, don't we?
I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, obviously, I think you and me both think they're top 25. I think a lot of loyal listeners think they're top 25. From an outside looking in, though, you're saying, okay, yeah, it makes sense. You've got a quarterback. You've got an A running back now. You've got a better offensive line. So you got a new coordinator that's produced in Lexington before. So I think the chemistry's there, but we've not actually seen the product on the field. So I think I can understand a little reserve there. But I think that gets put away. Kentucky's one of those programs that, 2-3 weeks in, we're like, oh shit, they are a top 25 program. I think that's what happens here. But a lot of people, they see the ingredients, but they just don't know what the meal's going to taste like,
Right. And I'll tell you this, Shane, I guarantee you, if you gave Mark Stoops truth serum and you said, would you rather be in the top 25 in the preseason, or would you rather be outside of it? 100 out of 100, he says, don't put that number next to our name, brother, because I'm going to use that to rally this team and get that chip on their shoulder. So might be exactly where you want to be if you're a Kentucky fan. How about this, Shane? One bad season, and it wasn't even god-awful. I mean, there's a lot worse teams, and we just boot them out of the top 25. I don't care for this one either. Number 30, Arkansas, which probably has the best quarterback in the SEC. A lot to like about Sam Pittman and company, but no love from the ESPN FPI here at number 30.
No, and again, I think it boils down to trust issues similar to Texas A&M. They just gotta see it, man. We pieced together a good season, then we have a down. It's like a roller coaster. We got to see consistency, especially like you said, when you've got arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the country. There should not be seasons like last year and a drop off. So this one here is just, they got hurt before and they're afraid to put them up any higher.
Yeah. How about this one, Shane? Again, you want to talk about annually underrated and disrespected. Mississippi State, number 32, which I could kind of get behind, maybe not in the top 25, but if you win a game or two jumping in there, I kind of get that. But, man, again, Zach Arnett's playing that disrespect card. You know what?
Right. Yeah, and that's a tough one, Mike. You and I have a tough time knowing where to put Mississippi State.
Right.
And, that's, again, one of those programs that just had a lot of turnover. We got a new coach in there. We don't know exactly what the system's going to look like. We can predict. We've seen spring action, but one thing that we do, like is Will Rogers. And I think having a good quarterback is a big part of remaining in a top 25. So that's why I would be moving this team up further the list just because of that.
Now, what team I kind of agree with here, Shane, number 39, Auburn, because that's another one, a lot of uncertainty, maybe adding more pieces via the transfer portal, which will correct this. You could prove a lot of people wrong, but I think it's always wise not to hype someone up year one in a new coaching staff and all that. So, Auburn, you could be a hell of a lot better than this, but I think this is fair around number 39, top 40 program. What's your thoughts on Auburn at number 39?
Oh, my thoughts are you better give South Carolina that toll-free number again because Mizzou better have that toll-free number again, because, Auburn, we expect further down this list, obviously, with everything that happened. But I think the biggest surprise is that they're not the bottom here. Auburn we knew would have to work their way up. And to be a top 40 team, yeah, I could see that. But at the end of the season, similar to an argument I made earlier, you remove Auburn and you put them in one of these other conferences, they're just going to run through it. So, I think this is kind of don't know what we have just yet. And it's a safe pick. If I'm putting this list together, I can make an argument for that spot.
Now, again, these are not our rankings.
No. Shane had nothing to do with it.
Sure as hell do not agree with this one. But at number 40, the Missouri Tigers, Shane, which I understand hesitations. I understand, maybe not trusting them. But they got number 2 returning production in the SEC. They've got a very manageable schedule. They've got experience and now talent at quarterback, bringing a ton back on defense. You put Missouri at number 40 at your own risk because this has a potential to be a top 20 team. So, you're basically missing the mark by a half here. I can't believe Missouri at 40. Can you?
No. These next two are just disrespectful in my opinion, and a reason I would not subscribe to any plus or anything that they have. Short of watching a spring game. After that, I was out. You know what I'm saying? I am not going to hold on to anything you guys put out. That's why
I am literally days away from canceling my cable, and the only reason I have it. And this is no joke because LSU and Alabama play on Saturday. Saturday night, that bad boy gets canceled because I got no use for ESPN and all this.
You are not alone, my friend. Short of the Weather Channel, I don't need it, It's like, unless there's tornadoes coming my way, I may regret not having local news, but I can put a satellite up. But I'm with you here, Mike. This is it's just complete garbage. It is a waste of time to even – I would be pissed off. But again, this is the chip you need. This is the ammunition you need if you're Eli. This is the ammunition if you're Beamer. There's a lot of people out there that clearly do not respect what your organization is about and what they're doing. And I think you should take names, man, and come out here and just, show the country that you belong in the top 25, which I think both those teams do. Mike, I'm just curious, and I'm not trying to stoke the fire here, but can you give me do you have the complete list in front of you?
Yes, sir. I got the whole list now.
All right. Yeah. So just for shits and giggles, I'd love to hear the 5 teams above Missouri here that are not SEC. Obviously, Auburn's in the mix there, but Could you give me the top 5? I'm just trying to find where are they putting them with the other teams in the country.
Oklahoma State, Iowa,
Oh God,
NC State, Pitt, Syracuse, and then Minnesota.
wow, is this hockey? What are we doing here? You sure you got the right list? Is that what this is?
No, this is genuine right here.
Yeah. So that's just the disrespect. Honestly, if this is week 2 and Mizzou and Syracuse are going against each other, obviously we pulled a little bit for the bearded trader last year, but
Right.
that was a fun story. Missouri is a better football team. Their quarterback will be much improved. I really do think Cook can cook, man. Yeah. I think we're going to see a little bit more from the running game. I look at that bag of chips over your I mean, they have got some freaking dudes on that team. The defense is locked down. And Syracuse probably would not get 10 points in that game. I think it's a joke in my opinion, but whatever. Where's South Carolina, man?
I want to know, Shane, what did Shane Beamer and Spencer Rattler do to ESPN to get this disrespect? Number 42, 15th out of 16 SEC teams, South Carolina, number 42. God, this was a terrible list.
Was that show on ESPN the one he did last year?
They'll never do another one.
They'll never do another one. That was it. That was the last time.
He must have pissed somebody off over there with just some comment or something.
Seriously, yeah, they must have done something bad down there at Disney or something. He got to. Oh, this is stupid. This is such a dumb list. No, this one here, and again, similar arguments to Mizzou. This is a program that belongs in the top 25. Do they have some problems? Do they have some potential hiccups? Yes. We just talked yesterday about their offensive line, but we're nitpicking here. We still got one of the better quarterbacks in the country. We've still got one of the best receivers in the country. We've got the special teams, which is phenomenal. It's just all around a program that if the stars align could really make some noise in the SEC, and to think that they don't belong in the top 40 in the country is just an absolute joke, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll add to that,
who did this list? Is this like a composite thing, or is there like some dude that made this actual list or report? We need to get these names out here.
It's like their computer model, and it says it's a season-long rankings and projection system. They simulate the season 20,000 times, and this is what the model tells them.
Stupid computers.
But I would say this, Shane, and we do not agree with this ranking whatsoever. But let's say it is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
At bare minimum, if I'm a South Carolina fan, I'm saying you're telling us we're number 42 in the country, and we finished 3rd in the East. That means we have got one hell of a coach that is doing more with less. And Spencer Rattler, some people like to judge him and hate on him and all this. He is over exceeding expectations. Yeah. If they're the 15th out of 16th best SEC team, and we're finishing 3rd in the East, and the top 2 went undefeated against the SEC West. I know everybody loves to say the SEC West better than the East. Well, the best in the East were better than the best in the West, I'll tell you that. Yeah. So, I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. And then finally, Shane, Vanderbilt, which I think they even got this one wrong. Number 73, Vanderbilt, with multiple SEC wins last year. I mean, this is not Derek Mason Vanderbilt anymore. This is a team on the rise. 73. I ain't buying that for the Vanderbilt Commodores. Are you?
Just curious. Back to the list. You got 5 ahead of them. What is it? UTEP and Nevada,
Virginia, which I think won 1 game last year. Stanford, which they did so well, their longtime head coach got fired. Fresno State and Troy. Come on, man. Come on, Troy.
Come on, Troy. Vanderbilt and Troy play today, Mike. Who's favored?
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, of course. So stupid. Poor Vandy, man. I mean, they're always going to get the bad rap right now at being the worst team in the SEC. But, even the worst team in the SEC is not 70th in the country, in my opinion, Mike. There's a lot of teams that are in the SEC that don't want to play Vanderbilt. Ask Florida. Ask Kentucky. These are two teams they lost to last year. So,
two or 3 years ago, that's a fair ranking.
Yeah.
But it ain't 2 or 3 years ago anymore. You know what?
No, absolutely not. I tell you, you guys are sleeping on Swan. There's something about the kid I just absolutely love, and I think Vanderbilt is going to sneak a few more wins this season, and we're going to look back at this list, and it won't be on the newspaper. Nobody wants to talk about, oh, we messed up on Vanderbilt. What I'm saying? But I think we get to the end of next season, we're going to look back and say 70th. Man, did you not watch this game? Did you not watch that game? Vanderbilt's going to a bowl, baby.
So just remember, Shane, this is the only time we'll talk about this damn FPI the whole year because of this. I mean, it's garbage, but thank you for the content here. You know what?
Absolutely. I'll be dropping you guys next week.
All right, buddy. So I teased it there. Let's get to this great interview. Michael Katz, he's been on the show a number of times. This is the best interview yet. You guys are going to like this one. All right, we're pleased to once again be joined by Michael Katz. Of course, we've had him on the show a number of times, covers Ole Miss for the DJ Journal. And I come to find out this week he drives a Subaru. How you doing, Katz?
Yeah, I didn't realize that was going to be such a divisive thing. Like, I'm from California, but I lived in like the Mountain West territory, so like Idaho, Wyoming, like you have to have a Subaru there, or something like of that nature. And so I bought that car when I was in Boise, and so when a radio host today was like, "I bet you drive a Subaru," and I kind of paused and I was like, "I actually do," and then he was like, I bet you play disc golf. And I was like, I'm not even kidding. I just had that conversation last week. And he's like, I bet you like craft beer. And I was like, why are you in my head? Like, I feel seen right now. This is really weird.
Well, that's where I draw the line, Katz, because, hell, anything with alcohol, I'll drink it. And craft beer, I got no problem with that.
Yeah, no. But so do you have a problem with the Subaru, though? Because I guess I won't be picking you up anytime soon if you do. It's fine.
I mean, not really. Honestly, I'm not a car guy, but it just seems like around here, if you don't drive a truck, you don't know what the hell you're doing. And the reason I'm anti-truck is because I don't want everybody I know to be, hey, I got to move a couch. Hey, I got to move a bed and calling me up. So I don't think I'll ever own a truck, to be honest with you.
You're everybody's friend when you have a truck.
Exactly.
It's dangerous. You have a lot of favors.
Well, I'll tell you who's everybody's friend in the damn transfer portal. We all know it. Lane Kiffin, the transfer portal king. Did you see the comments late last week? I kind of roasted him for it. I'm curious to know what you thought. He was mad. I think he was mad more about tampering than anything else. But what'd you make of that exchange if you saw it on Feinbaum? Basically, he just said, they're coming after the best running back in the country. He's on my roster, and I thought that was illegal, on and on and on. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so with Lane, there's always there's a few things he really wants to talk about. There's some things he absolutely never wants to talk about, like injuries and stuff like that. But like
the Auburn job.
Well, he talks about it now, as you might have seen on ESPN.com or a few days ago at his press conference. But one thing that he's really outspoken on is the portal and playing the game, but also I want to say the dirty part, and there's dirty parts in all of this, but without even being prompted, he has told us a couple of times that Quinshon Judkins was basically being recruited without being in the transfer portal, which by the rules is very much not, that's very much illegal.
Right.
I think Lane does everything with a purpose. He's very intentional with the way he does things. He doesn't just say things to say them. I know it sometimes seems that way. He's really intentional with what he decides to talk about and who he talks to it about and how he talks about it. And, you know, do I personally know if Quinshon was recruited? I'm not going to get that information. You know, we talked to him because we're not allowed to talk to freshmen. So we talked to him for the first time a couple weeks ago, which is crazy. Like the SEC's one of the best running backs in the league we'd never talked to. And he was asked about it and he was very buttoned up about it, which, you know, you would expect for a 19-year-old to, you know, and probably best to avoid the topic altogether. But, you know, I don't know what happened with that, but I do know that there's probably a reason Lane is making a point of it. And it's when, you know, because sometimes the transfer portal levels the playing field, right? Because you can get the 5 stars that you couldn't get before that didn't work out in another place. You know, Ole Miss wasn't getting Jaxson Dart before, but they got another chance. They got him this time. But there's still some inconsistencies in terms of the playing field. You know, they find ways the good teams always kind of end up having a little bit of an edge. And so when there's money involved, as can be now, you know, and that's what this always, it's what the conversation usually comes down to is NIL and who's offering more. And, you know, Lane's brought up the idea of contracts. You're usually going to go where there's more money. That's just how it works. I think he's probably making a point that like there's going to be some unfair stuff happening here because those schools that are always really good at this are going to be really good at this too because they have the resources. And so I think he's probably trying to get something, you know, he has said that this is not sustainable, like how it is right now. Something has to happen. And I think he's trying to get traction on that because when Lane talks, people listen because he doesn't talk about a ton of stuff, but when he does, it's usually for a reason.
Now, let me ask you this, because this is something I'm very fascinated by, just given the fact that Lane Kiffin has been wildly successful. I think you could argue he's been much more successful or certainly as successful as Hugh Freeze. I'm just looking at the recent history of the program. But last season ended poorly, obviously. There was all the speculation and fans, it seemed like by the end of all that and by how the season ended, there was some animosity. Now, certainly not within the athletics program. I mean, they just gave him this monster contract, so I'm not insinuating he's on any kind of hot seat. That even for the SEC, that'd be crazy. But I'm just wondering if has the majority of the fan base warmed back up to him? Have they forgotten about that, or do they need to see some wins in the fall, do you think, to kind of get back on the bandwagon?
I think winning helps with everything, but you know, there's like moments where it seems like everything that happened last Thanksgiving-ish, which is when all the Auburn stuff came to its fullest. The Monday of the Egg Bowl, I think, is when it all kind of happened. I think like now that it's April, like a lot of people have just kind of not like forgotten about it, but they don't really care anymore. But then like this ESPN story drops. And it's brought back up again, and people are talking about it again. And like, I don't think people want to hear about it anymore. You know, it's like every time that like someone tweets something that he said, they're like, we don't care anymore. He didn't go to Auburn. And it's like, I think there's a little bit of a like, okay, we get it. It was a thing. Let's like all move on because we don't want it to happen again.
Yeah.
And so I think there's always going to be like the purists who were like, he's not an Ole Miss guy because he thought about leaving, you know, the Tommy Tuberville kind of thing. But I think ultimately the majority of fans and the ones who understand how this all works know that it's a business. And I know the athletic department understands that too. I've talked to Keith Carter about this. You can't take it personally. This is just how it works. And you know, it is what it is. He's here, and you know, ultimately this football program's in a way better place than it was a couple years ago after Hugh and everything that happened there and the Matt Luke stuff. This program's on pretty solid footing right now, and so I think the majority of people understand that You know, I think fans can say we're in a far better place than we were in 2019 when you know, Elijah Moore pretended to take a whiz on the field. I think things are in. I think most fans would agree they're in a better place right now. But I think there's always going to be some people who are, you know, wondering if he's you know, how invested he is in it, because like this has been his. Lane does not stay places very long. The stat was like if he makes it through like midway this season, it'll be the longest he's ever been at a place, which is crazy to think about. And so, yeah, I think there's always going to be questions, and I think this might be something that we just do every year because his name's always going to be hot. That's just kind of the way it is, and you know, if you're playing the business part of it, you probably want your name to be out there because it means more money from you from whatever ends up happening. But I think the majority of fans understand that this program's in a better place. Now, I don't know if that means that their win-loss record is better this next year because their schedule is brutal. You have Tulane as one of your non-conference games in New Orleans. You know, I'm a USC grad. I have been hurt by Tulane very recently. I have seen what they.
I wasn't even gonna bring it up.
Yeah, so like I've seen it with my own eyes. Tulane's really good, and they kept their coach, and they got a quarterback back, and that's going to be a fun one. And then they've got a stretch where I'm not sure of the exact order, but it's like Bama, Auburn, LSU, and Arkansas all in a row, and they play at Georgia. Like that's tough. That's really tough. And so I think this team's better than it was. You know, Jaxson Dart, and I'm sure we'll want to talk about him, but he's looked great this spring. The defense, they bring in Pete Golding. You assume that there's some amount of improvement there. And I don't know if the record gets better because the schedule's so much worse. Like if they had the same schedule they had this year, you might be looking at like a 10-win team. But the schedule is just, it's brutal. There are really no, it sounds cliche, but there are no days off, weekends off in the SEC. Unless like, they can't even say Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt's pretty good. They're building something there. Like there are no really bad, you know, circle them on your calendar. This is the win.
Wasn't Vanderbilt beating them at halftime?
They were at halftime.
Right.
They were up, and I was like, "What is happening here?"
And then Ole Miss, I think, won like 42-0 in the second half. So
yeah, Ole Miss remembered that Vanderbilt had a very bad pass defense. And Jaxson Dart threw for like 450 yards. Jonathan Mingo had 270 yards, whatever it was. That's when Lane was trying to get him the record, so they were up by like 20 starters, and I was like, "That's perfect."
Do you think we're ever going to get to a point where Lane Kiffin's Twitter is, you know, censored a la Hugh Freeze down at Auburn? Because surely no one is approving these messages Lane Kiffin's putting out.
I think like when you hire somebody like that, I think you have to understand that part of it is letting him be him. And
Yeah.
that's part of his brand is like the unfiltered trolling, kind of being the heel to everybody and like kind of getting under everybody's skin a little bit, but like not enough to the point where it's like vile or vulgar or like that egregious. But like even the other day, like you texted me, he was tweeting about the Florida spring game. It was like 7-7 or whatever. And he did the flame emojis or whatever it was. And then after their spring game, which was like a 50-something to 50-something game, he's like, "Yeah, we like exciting spring games." And I was like, because you see these 0-0 games. I was like, man, there's always a purpose to everything. And so I don't think, I think you hire him like when he's your head coach, you know that there's just some things you got to let him do it. And then for the most part, he doesn't screw it up. He toes the line every once in a while, and I'm sure he's probably had some conversations, but I don't think it's at risk of the alleged Hugh Freeze censored somebody else running it, whatever that situation is. I still don't have a ton of clarity on what the bylaws were in that one in his contract on who gets to run his Twitter or whatever. But I think you just gotta let Lane be Lane. It's the same reason you let him go for fourth downs as much as he does. It's because it's just It's who he is, and you hired him, and that's the reason you did, is because he does things a little different.
See, now I just think he's playing 4D chess, Katz, and he's sitting here saying, when Florida fires Billy Napier in November,
No.
remember, who puts up points in these. I'm just kidding. I'm just letting you know that's happening. That his name will be rumored.
Well, are you saying that Billy Napier? Are you already calling your shot that it's going to happen already?
No, I'm basically all in on trolling Florida at this point in time. But
Fair.
if there's heat, yeah, Lane Kiffin will be mentioned there. But let's get back to Ole Miss, of course. Jaxson Dart, you mentioned him. Is it over before it even began? Because all indication that I'm hearing is Jaxson Dart is. I mean, it would take a lot for Spencer Sanders or Walker Howard, as talented as they may be, to overcome Jaxson Dart. What's your read on the situation?
I mean, Jaxson had an amazing spring, and there's no way around it. And it's one thing to have like the head coach tell you that, and there's it's coach speak is what it is. But like every player that we talked to was like, this is a different guy. And we go to practices and we see it, and he's not making the crucial mistake. He looks comfortable. Physically, he looks bigger. He was already a pretty big kid. He looks the part even more so now. And he just looks comfortable all around and relaxed. And man, he was thrown. I know that he played at USC as a true freshman, but that was such a different offense. That was an air raid. I mean, that was going from that to what Ole Miss and Lane and Charlie Weiss Jr. do was so different. And I do think there's something to be said for that adjustment. And I know Lane said it a few times last year that's like he's almost having a second freshman season. I don't know if you go that far with it, but it was an adjustment. And he looked like a different guy. And, the spring game, his completion percentage wasn't great. He had some drops, but he didn't turn the ball over. And that's the thing with him, is if you can avoid the big mistake, he's going to make some really good things happen, because he's got a really good arm talent and he can move the ball with his legs. And, I think the team really rallies behind him too. He's a magnetic kind of personality. I think people really like Jaxson Dart. And if you talk to him, you get it. He's just kind of got that energy about him. That being said, like if you're Spencer Sanders, I don't think you transferred to a place if you didn't think you had a chance.
Yeah.
Especially when you've started 4 years and you've got one left. Like, I don't think you go to Ole Miss when they tell you you're going to be a backup. That seems insane. I don't think you sign up for that. So, and Spencer, he looked really good in the spring game. He was a little bit limited over the spring with a shoulder injury that he had at Oklahoma State, that limited him a little bit last year. But he's got a track record. Like, he can play. He's first team all Big 12. He's a good player. Walker Howard might have been the best quarterback at the spring game. He looked amazing. He's got a big arm, and he's looked really good all spring too. And so I know you take everything this spring with a grain of salt, just because like once a year you see like a walk-on guy who has like 140 yards in the spring game, and you're like, look for him in the fall, and then he catches like 2 passes the entire year. Because that's certain guys show up, and it's all so different in the spring. That being said, I do believe that Jaxson Dart has. I mean, it'd be foolish to think he doesn't have the edge. I'm not sure. Like, people want to talk about like an open quarterback competition. I don't, and I think like Lane kind of skirted around that too, and has said it's competition. It's making everybody better. He brought it up the other day. If you're a baseball team, you don't just want one starting pitcher who's good. You want a bunch of starting pitchers who are good. That's how you build a team. And because he had said, well, you can only play one, and he's like, well, why wouldn't you want to have a lot of good ones? Because what if something happens? If somebody, heaven forbid, somebody gets hurt, you want to be in a good spot and not be putting in a guy who isn't going to be able to win games. And so I do think there is something to be said for just improving the quality of the room. But you got to think, just with the way Dart looked and the way people talked about him, and just the natural maturation of a guy from year 1 to year 2, you would have to think he's in a pretty good spot. But again, there's that part of me that's like, what's Spencer Sanders' play here? Like what does he know that we don't know, or why he came here in the first place? And so it's always Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are always one to monitor, as you know. There's always something going on to make it complicated. It's just another day on the Ole Miss beat, just trying to see how it all shakes out. But Jackson's looked really good, and I would have to think that he's put himself in a pretty good spot.
And I'm not saying this is what happened, Katz, but you could convince me that they brought in Spencer Sanders just so he wouldn't go to Auburn to connect with OU.
Well, there's a little gamesmanship that has been floated around, and you know what? The way the game is played in this, I'm not gonna say there's no way.
Right.
Because if you got him, someone else doesn't. So
exactly.
I'm not going to rule it out because there's a lot of gamesmanship going around these days.
Well, the other big addition that Ole Miss had this offseason, Pete Golding, of course, a new defensive coordinator. Thoughts on what you've seen from him at practice? It's obviously way too early to know if he will be an upgrade, like I assume he will be. But any talking to the players or anything, the energy at practice, and what can you tell us about Pete Golding down there in Oxford?
There was an energy when players talk about him, and I think part of it is like because he has cachet. Like he's a guy that people know. He's a big name. He got a big contract. I know Alabama fans feel certain ways about Pete Golding, but for the most part, he's a guy that people have a lot of positive feelings about around college football, and Ole Miss was able to get him, and so. I know players were like really excited, and when we asked them like what were your thoughts when you heard that it was happening, and they were all really excited because they understand his track record and the players that he's helped develop and that he's had. And obviously part of that's recruiting too. Will Anderson. I don't know if there's a Will Anderson currently on Ole Miss's roster, just in terms of pure that type of player, but I think they're excited about his track record, and I also think just the way the season ended last year, particularly with them, the way they got gashed in the run game, it was really bad. They just could not stop the bleeding. Mississippi State ran the ball pretty well against them, and that was, that was Mike Leach's rest in peace, last game. And the air raid is running the ball on you at will. It's a tough look, right? And so I think they're excited too that the defense is going to be different, just schematically. The 3-2-6. There's just games where it's just not going to work when they want to run the ball on you. You can't have two linebackers, undersized linebackers, and a bunch of defensive backs because, as we saw against Arkansas, they're going to figure it out. They're going to exploit it. They're going to make your life miserable. And so I think there's excitement too about the defense being more multiple and it being more geared to stop the things that really kind of did them in down the stretch. We haven't talked to Pete Golding yet because we only get to talk to coordinators once a year. It's in August. That's the Saban school of doing things, one voice for the program, all that kind of stuff. And so we haven't gotten to pick his brain yet, but players have been really high on just his football intelligence and the way that he kind of does things. There's an excitement for sure. And I know the spring game, it's like when there's 105 points scored, whatever it was, people are like, oh God, here we go again. But the defense, they had like two, play calls they could run. Lane has said that, the offense was supposed to be vanilla too, but the assistants took some liberties with play calling. And maybe ran some plays they weren't supposed to run that kind of caught the defense off guard. And then he's also talked about the fact that, you don't want a 7-7, spring game. You want to get people excited. So the defense was behind the 8 ball the whole time. So I don't think people should put any stock in what they saw in the spring game.
Yeah.
But I think, this spring too was about learning the playbook and figuring out where guys fit. And, there were a lot of guys who didn't play this spring. that figure to be a big part of what the defense looks like. So it's a long-winded way of saying I don't think we know a ton yet, other than the fact that players seem really excited about the move.
All right, final question for you, Michael. Really appreciate your time. But, maybe what is the biggest question that you had coming into spring that you feel like you found an answer to during camp? And maybe same thing, what is the biggest question that remains heading into fall for Ole Miss?
I mean, this is the cheap way out, but my biggest question was about the quarterbacks. What is Dart? How does he handle this? Right? Not everybody is going to handle it really well. Some people are going to be like, I'm out. They're going to be despondent about it. They're going to handle it a certain way. Jackson's handled it really, really well. And I think he's a guy, he's the cliche like chip on the shoulder guy. I think he's better when there's doubters or there's competition, iron sharpens iron, that kind of thing. I wasn't sure how he was going to react to it. And he's handled it exactly the way that he needs to. And he's gotten a lot better because of it. The season didn't end like that long ago. And the jump that he's made from that Texas Bowl to now, and I know it's spring and things look different than they will in a real game, but it's night and day from basically anybody you talk to, and he acknowledges it too. He feels like he's a different quarterback, and so I was curious. Is Spencer Sanders just going to walk in here and just take it, and Jaxson Dart's pouting? I wasn't sure how that dynamic was going to work. Jaxson Dart has handled it really, really well, and he's become a better player for it. I guess the thing I'm not really sure about yet is and this kind of seems like a question like every year is which Michael Trigg are we going to see? He's got 4 touchdowns in 2 spring games here, and it always looks like he's going to be like he looks like he should be the breakout guy, right? And they brought in a tight end from Memphis, Caden Prescorn, who is he's a really good player, and Lane has said they haven't had a tight end like him who can kind of do everything. Ole Miss has kind of had specialty tight ends. Kenny Yeboah was a kind of a slot-ish guy. Trigg is kind of in that mold, not a guy you necessarily going to put in line a ton. And so you got to figure out, we know how talented Michael Trigg is. We've seen it. There's a reason everybody wanted him. But what does the playing share look like, and how does he handle the competition? He got suspended toward the end of last year. He had some things to work on, and so I'm curious where he's at mentally. We know the physical part's going to be there. Everybody can see it. He looks like, like when a high school, it's varsity versus JV. I mean, he just looks like he's just older, bigger, faster, stronger than everybody out there. And we know it's there. The question is he going to get the opportunities? Because they brought in another guy to kind of fill in the gaps that he doesn't do as well. And what you're getting with Caden Prescorn. He was an all AAC guy at Memphis last year. He's a really good all-around player. What you're getting day in and day out. I don't know if we know what you're getting day in and day out from Michael Trigg yet. And I think that's the big mystery with him is which version of him are you going to get? Are you going to get the spring version that looks like an All-American, or are you going to get the one? I know he got hurt last year, but even before he got hurt, there was inconsistency. He just didn't always show up in games. And so that's the one thing I want to see is which Michael Trigg is Ole Miss going to get this year.
Yeah, anytime someone says Michael Trigg, all I think about is that there's a highlight of him at USC breaking 7-8 tackles, looking like damn LeBron James of college football or something. So if they get that guy, man, they're gonna be tough to stop. You know what?
Yeah, no, and that's why they took him, right? Because you see, and Lane has said it, that those physical attributes don't just come along. You can find good tight ends and big receivers, but that package is really, really rare. So if you have a chance to pick that up, you are betting on the fact that he's going to figure it out. And if he can figure it out for a whole season, man, he's he's going to make himself a lot of money soon in the NFL because he's got everything you could possibly want in terms of the big, strong receiving tight end who's the ultimate mismatch.
Well, Michael, I really appreciate all your time. Before you go, can you tell the audience where's the best place to find all your work?
Yeah, so you can find me at djournal.com. It's the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal. If you want to look at the tweets, I always give a disclaimer. A lot of stuff that doesn't involve anything that you probably care about, but if you do want to see the tweets, it's at Michael L. Katz, and that's Katz. A lot of different things going on the Twitter feed, but if there's something, if there's Ole Miss news in there, you can be sure that it will be in there somewhere. Just matters like where it is on the timeline. Something dumb might happen, and I'll probably have a tweet about it. So.
All right, so just want to say thanks again, Michael, for joining the show. Yeah. You can find his Twitter handle and link to his website, the DJ Journal, in the show notes. But man, I apologize,
cool dude.
Shane. Yeah,
I met him down there at that SEC
right,
media days. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a cool cat. Pun intended.
Yeah. Well, man, I apologize for not recording you for half the show here, but
that's all right.
It was such a great one. I had to keep going with it, you know it. But
yeah, clearly I have a radio voice anyway, Mike. So,
you got anything else before we hop off the line?
No, again, excited about the new hotline. This is just a couple of things we want to do. We want to get a little more fan interactive this season, and we got some cool stuff brewing. So just keep your ears to the ground. The closer we get and more definitive dates we have, we got some stuff planned and where we'd like to come see you guys. So, but other than that, Mike, this is again we got to soak up the last of it's like the last two drops, the last slice of pizza. It's like you gotta get it. We got Alabama, got LSU. And then after that, we've got a lull of no college football. But we'll have plenty of college football content coming to you from that SEC podcast. So be sure to subscribe to all of our social media outlets. We're now on Facebook. I think we what do we get up to 100 there? I think we're slowly but surely growing that thing. TikTok, but mainly Twitter, Reddit. The Reddit's really cool. Mike talked. I don't know if you caught it on the last show, but he's been putting all the highlights of the spring games. So maybe you didn't get to see the spring games because you're not subscribed to ESPN Plus. You can always jump on Reddit and catch those highlights.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, brother, I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you for hanging out. We'll catch you on the next one.
All right. See you guys. Go Vols.